Hi, my name's Quinn.
And I'm Corey, and this is a More Spiritual You podcast. Today we have Hilary Stark, the owner of Stark Naked, and she's going to take us through some of her practices that she offers.
Hi guys, my name's Hilary Stark. I'm the owner and operator of Stark Naked. Your naked is sacred. I am an embodiment guide. I do somatic healing work and tantric embodiment.
So Hilary, can you tell us a little bit about how you got introduced to Tantra?
Yeah. My journey actually started about 7 years ago when my dad passed away. And that got me into energy workers, psychics, and mediums and wanting to connect with him and kind of have readings from the other side. So I began my journey with energy workers and healers, receiving and opening up my gifts and psychic abilities. And then I became a Reiki practitioner. And soon after that, started doing foot zoning, which further got me into the body and healing, ability to open up my gifts and start channeling for clients while I was helping them move energy, connecting into their bodies. And then I became a breathwork facilitator a couple of years ago. All of these practices I've used for myself and then started becoming a facilitator to hold space for other people on their journey. And shortly after that, I found Tantra through an experience of another Tantric healer who guided me through my own personal Tantric healing session. And then I started going to retreats and festivals and studying other Tantric teachers to learn this practice.
What's kind of the background around Tantra that you've learned? I know it's a pretty ancient practice.
Yeah. As one of my teachers says, Tantra is an umbrella statement. Tantra is the weaving of energy. It's a Sanskrit word. The practice originates, like you said, from thousands of years ago. Originally through India, there's Buddhist and Hindu practice. There's also practices from Egypt. And it's the weaving of energy. It's the weaving of our inner masculine and inner feminine energy. And it's our life force connecting our spiritual energy with our sexual energy. It's a practice of slowing down, coming into presence, connecting into the body, into the heart, into the spirit, and the weaving of our own energy first, and then the weaving of connecting with another's energy. It's really a gateway to heart healing, like deep heart practice of taking down the masks and unarmoring and really living from a place connected into our hearts, really being able to see, feel, and connect with our souls and our spirits.
That sounds very similar to like the practice of Kundalini. Do those, especially when you go like this, and I feel like it's like the coil.
Yeah.
Does it have any
connection?
Yeah.
So it's an ancient practice from India, and there's in the Western, a lot of what the practices they brought into Western, we call it more like Neo-Tantra, and then there's ancient Tantric practice. More of the Westernized way have brought it into other modalities and practices, but ancient practices, it is the weaving of your energy. So the Kundalini is the life force. It's the Shakti and the Shiva. They're deities or guides you can connect into. And the Kundalini snakes, they say, sit at the root chakra. We've got our 7 chakras that run through the body from our root to our crown. And as you start to awaken with the breath, which Tantra is breath, sound, movement, presence, safety. As you start to awaken with your breath, your energy is moving through your chakras and healing. The snakes start to, they say, uncoil and then weave through the 7 chakras, meeting at the third eye and having that sense of your divine masculine and feminine energies connected, that feeling of one, of being one with self, not needing to look outside of ourselves. So yeah, it's a ancient practice that starts with self, internal.
So you can deepen and heal your connection to yourself so that you can show up for the other in full embodiment.
So the Kundalini is life force energy, which is our spiritual energy that we connect into through breath and body.
When I hear Tantra, and I think of most people do, they think automatically of tantric sex. What are some common misconceptions about Tantra?
Well, I love it when people come to me thinking they would just want to improve their sex life or intimacy with a partner, which is a beautiful place to get to. And that tends to be what can happen after you do all the work prior. So the misconception is that Tantra has to be with a partner, that it's only sexual or it's only intimacy with another person, another partner, but that's actually not true. Kundalini yoga is the practice of Tantra with self, actually. Breath sound movement, connecting into the body, feeling your 7 chakras, connecting into your heart space. And so you start with actually a self practice, and then you can come into partnered practice. Other misconceptions are only male and female can run energy or connect through tantric breath, which is false. You can have 2 men connecting through a tantric practice, 2 women, sexual, non-sexual. It's just really a practice of true intimacy and really feeling seen and met spiritually through heart connection and soul. Some other misconceptions would be, a lot of people just think that Tantra is a practice of pleasure and connecting into like your sexual expression or sexual body. And it's actually not true. It's really about connecting into your safe body, learning how to be fully present in your energy, regulated in your nervous system so you can see, feel, and understand all that's going on with you. And we have to be regulated, and we call it dropped in or connected with self first to then really be able to see, feel, and hear the person across from you. So there's a lot of misconceptions around thinking that people are only coming for sex.
Yeah.
So Corey and I actually got to do an individual session with Hilary, and my experience was, or at least the majority of what I took from it, was the trauma that was being held in certain parts of my body. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you typically go through with people who are doing a session, or what does the session typically look like?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So with my practice, that's why I call it somatic healing and tantric embodiment, because I do use a lot of tantra practices and embodiment practices and modalities, but I start back with inner child work and trauma and safety in the body, and that's where a lot of the somatic breath work comes in, where I'm just teaching you how to connect first into your body to feel safe in your body and start to understand emotions, trauma, and energy held in your body. Most of us know trauma happens most often with from 0 to 8 when we're young. It's the times we were not heard, not seen, not felt, not met. And a lot of people think they don't have trauma because they had a good life, or they had a great home, or they had good parents. But a lot of it starts from emotional neglect, or the parents being unable to attune, which attuning is being able to see, feel, and hear through what they're just saying or showing. It's like really feeling into the child or feeling into the person. So a lot of people don't think they have trauma until they come into a session. They start to calm down, regulate their nervous systems, connect into their body. When we feel safe, everything surfaces. And so then they're beginning to cry, they're beginning to have these thoughts and feelings or memories come up, and realizing they have had a lot of trauma. So it's essentially starting with the safety and regulating the nervous system to allow things to start to surface. Those traumas from when we were younger, all these, we call it inner parts work, inner family systems. Your parts will start to come up and come out, and you'll start to have memories, thoughts, or feelings of times you weren't seen, or you weren't safe, or you weren't held, because you're being safe, seen, and held and heard for the first time, maybe for a lot of people.
Yeah. That's definitely how I felt. You know, I feel like I've done a lot of like inner child work, but I found myself in kind of an ebb where I couldn't really explain, you know, why I was not as happy as I usually am. And when after doing the session with you, and we had talked about, you know, the abandonment and the neglect from like my childhood, even though I have addressed those things, it kind of brought them like to the forefront, to where I was like, okay, I gotta go home, and I gotta call my sister, and I gotta call my mom, and we got some things that, you know, maybe I've addressed in the past, but like I need to go a little deeper and have a greater understanding of, you know, why that trauma is still present. And after you know, spending like 2 hours with my mom on the phone, and then the next day doing the same thing with my sister, it was like it was like a complete turnaround. It was like a lot of that weight that I was carrying that I didn't even really realize that I was carrying, because I thought that I had addressed it. But being able to talk about that on a deeper level, and actually you gave me a better understanding of why I felt the way that I felt and why there were things that I still needed to address. It was just, like I said, it was like a complete turnaround, and ever since I feel like I've kind of, been on more of a flow than an ebb. And that and the sun being out much more is helping.
Right?
What was your experience like?
Spring is coming.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've had a couple experiences with her, but I've been fortunate to do that. And yeah, every time there's, memories, emotions, energies that come up and present themselves to me that I wasn't even aware of that they were there. And like, to speak to what you said, it does assist in giving you insights into why I'm having certain experience in my day to day, or my now time, and just seeing how those are playing out, and having the opportunity to see it and love it and heal it is profound. And just from our session the other day, I felt some big shifts, and I even had things coming through from my father and my grandfather's generation, that energies I was carrying that I wasn't even aware of. So it was pretty profound experience. I walked out of here feeling lighter. Continue to have
breakthroughs. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. That's what's profound about the work. Yeah, so you speaking into inner child and traumas and memories, allowing, I always say, when we feel safe, it can surface, and just allowing you to be seen, held, and witnessed. And we're going back to the ages, the parts, the times that you had those memories, and then asking deeper questions to go into, okay, what's connected there that's now still present in your adult life or current life. And the sense of like consented touch as well with Tantra and somatic healing is really pivotal, because the body keeps the score. It remembers, even though our mental, conscious, unconscious mind don't always remember everything. It's like the body, that mind, body, spirit really starts to help when you connect all three. That's what I love about somatic healing, that a lot of people go to therapy and cold plunging and breath work and all of these different modalities they're doing with themselves, and they're processing within themselves. But the beauty with Tantra is when you can come into intimacy and connection and consented, safe touch. There's something about healing touch from childhood, if you weren't nurtured, touched, or held, that really helps the body to soften and regulate and feel, and then being able to feel held and supported through the process, through the emotion, through letting yourself really experience what's there.
Now, with like the common misconceptions that Tantra is all about sex, have you had somebody come in that was like, had the wrong expectations? Like,
oh yeah. Well, to speak to that, that's another reason why I don't just leave my books open or allow clients just to book a random one-off session with me, especially when it does come to shamanic heart de-armoring and tantric, because I do Tantra body work and energy work with the body through touch, through clothes, and then through deeper work with table work, and you're more robed or covered. And so, yeah, I for that very reason, I don't leave my books open for people to come in. I do have men reach out to me often talking about sex addiction, porn addiction, sexual trauma, which is a really profound way for them to understand the healing benefits and intimacy of Tantra. And then they actually are more inclined and do want to come and do a session, and then realizing like it's a journey. It's not just a one-time experience. And so the misconception can be great in that they'll reach out and having these conversations, do you do tantric massage? Because that's a common theme in the Tantra world. And yeah, you can get to those points with the body, but we start with clothes, and we start just with breath and presence and really being seen, felt, and heard, just where you're at, helping heal that inner child, and then moving into more of the trauma around sex and intimacy, and teaching people they're using sex to actually gain intimacy or discover intimacy, and finding like, why is this not working? Why is this not happening? And oftentimes it's because so many men and women from their childhood trauma and emotional neglect are living with armored hearts, and they're not actually able to open and feel themselves, let alone someone else feel into them. And that's the true art of intimacy, is really being felt through that deep heart connection. But it's vulnerable and it's scary. And oftentimes I'll ask my clients, well, which one of you in partnership is going to go first? Like, who's going to lead with vulnerability? Who's going to take off the armor? Who's going to show up open-hearted and like willing to stay open rather than, you know, contract, compete, compare, and shut down.
We get so used to the masks we wear and like being afraid to fully be seen. And so it's beautiful to find a space to have the opportunity to take that armor off. See what's there.
Yeah, stark naked.
Get stark
right?
naked.
Get stark naked. And people often will say, like, do you do breath work naked with people? And I'm like, well, in a way, like, yeah, we're getting naked by taking off the masks and the armor and really questioning the programs and leaning into the shame. Like, I want you to let the shame come up. That's where we're rewriting, you know. You drown in a swimming pool, you've got to get back in the pool and learn how to swim. So yeah, the shame, guilt, fear is what keeps a lot of us armored and masked. And it's that's the underbelly or the shadow work, the kind of the taboo part of Tantra work. And people tend to have a lot of judgment around that being okay or not okay, but that's how you heal. That's the shadow work that a lot of people avoid.
Yeah, that's where the gold is, though, right?
Yeah.
The most profound
transformation
shifts in your day-to-day experience.
Yeah. I mean, both of you guys experienced those in your own sessions, like, you know, some of that deep.
I found, like, in the spiritual journey, as you start to, like, experience new ways of being and states of consciousness, like, for me, I wanted to just experience those higher states and be in those higher states, and then I've noticed it eventually leads you back. I've seen it around me and other people too, but it's that work in the lower chakras is where, like I was saying, the gold is, because you know, that's where we really start to level up and start to expand, and as we release all that out, and let it all flow. So
yeah, and to speak
important.
Deeper into the Tantra piece, I love that you actually brought that up, because a lot of people in the spiritual realm will open up their gifts and their psychic abilities. They'll start meditating and levitating, and they're tapped in, and they're like chasing these highs through connecting with their guides or having these profound meditative experiences. So they're opening, you know, the crown, the third eye, a little bit of the throat, and they're opening the heart as long as it's love and light and good, right? But then when the shit happens, when the shame, the trauma, the shadow parts, it's like, oh, I don't want to go into that. And then they're shutting off their heart and trying to just tap in and get downloads and thoughts and help me understand. But then that's where I love the Tantra piece of, you come into those lower three chakras, solar plexus, sacral, and root, where most of our deep trauma is held, that need to feel safe, the intimacy, the ego, the personality, like claiming who we are, because we're so shut down as kids, needing needing to be something for our parents to feel better.
Yeah, and like you're talking about, letting go of the shame, the guilt, like all those lower energies, those weights, they're just, so yeah, I mean, it's, like you say, people tend to avoid it because it's not the prettiest.
It's it's vulnerable and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it's profound. Yeah, so it's important for sure. But yeah, I've seen that, and I'm like, okay, I'll come back to full circle here to do the work on the ground three, the bottom three chakras.
And that's where I often talk about with people creating intimacy and safety with self. That's why the Tantric practice is so important with self, because it's our job to find safety within ourselves. It's not someone else's job to make us feel safe. But so many people, especially women, want to project, well, men, they need to be safe for me. And I'll often say, well, how often do you ask yourself, are you safe for men? So many women don't think about it's a both and, right? So being able to feel safe in your body, to open up your heart, to stay open, and then that's where the trauma cycle happens, right? We get in a relationship with a partner, they're triggered in shame, guilt, or fear. They've got this cycle. They don't feel safe because they haven't done enough of their inner work in the deeper lower chakras. So they run, And then we've got abandonment and rejection, again, circling back to our inner child. And we're just literally causing trauma and pain to each other because we're not living with open hearts, but we're not willing to do our work to heal our own hearts. And we want other people to love us and see us and meet us. But yet, like, we're not willing to sit and meet ourselves. And that's been one of my biggest journeys with my practice. Is I've been so good at being psychic and reading people and seeing the broken parts of people and just wanting to help heal everyone else, that my biggest journey with Tantra was sitting with myself and being in my own shame, guilt, and fear, and my own projections and my own trauma, and realizing this is an inside job. And how am I working through this? How can I ask for support and guidance and still create safety for myself? But the ways we're codependently meshing in partnership to avoid those parts.
Yeah, definitely. And I like what you said about, women asking themselves, like, am I even a safe person for this guy? Because, we see so many, or at least, I don't know, maybe it's just the algorithm that I work in, but like I see a lot of people doing, shadow work and healing and all this stuff and talking about narcissistic abuse, and it always seems like it's the women being like, oh yeah, I'm the narcissist in my life, and they're always talking about a man. But I've been on the opposite end of that where, I had a narcissistic partner, and it's like, it just seems to be like this misconception that like only men can be narcissists, and so I like that you touched on that, because I think a lot of women are like, oh, I can't be a narcissist, or I can't be toxic, or I can't be this, because it's always been somebody who does it to me. But then it's actually the reactive abuse, like, oh, I'm acting this way because the man treated me like this, and so now I have to protect myself by acting like this. And then they project that onto their next partner.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point. I've never thought about that, but if you view it in society, most men are said to be the narcissist. Right. That's true. Yeah.
So, Hilary, what are some of the mental, physical, spiritual benefits of this practice, and what someone could expect working with you? Or hope to obtain?
Yeah. Like I said, you're coming into a grounded presence, you're connecting mind, body, spirit, you're opening up the heart. And then we're going into the inner child work, mother, father wounding, the shadow work in session, where I'm having you breathe into your body, feeling where you're feeling blocks or emotions, or where you're feeling disconnect. And then with my psychic abilities, I'm able to tap in oftentimes and ask someone, at this age, I'm being shown this memory or this thing with your father or your mother, or a part of you that felt this as a child. And then it allows for them to open by asking deeper questions. So I guess I would say, like, I'm helping them heal mind, body, spirit all in one session, as we're molding all parts coming together by asking deeper questions, allowing them to come to their own awarenesses and their own connections. And that's where I feel like the aha or the click happens, because you can sit in therapy and have a therapist tell you why you're doing these things or what's happening or where the cycle is repeating. But anytime you guys do body work or breath work, or like have that wild meditative experience where that click of aha, like you see, feel, and experience it, that's where the transformations happen in here, because you're able to feel the emotion, go back to the memory, experience the raging, screaming, laughing, crying, whatever's coming up, because a lot of it again is breath, sound, movement. And so I'm inviting you to let all those parts and pieces come out. Having that felt experience is really, I think, what helps people transition for mental, spiritual, and emotional, leaving the space. And then you said also the integration part of it allows for them to have these experiences or these memories pop up in session, and then they're going and having the conversations with loved ones or with partners, or like having the space to say, hey, I want to take ownership, I apologize. Or a lot of it is learning to nonviolent communication, like, where did I have a part in this, and what am I experiencing, and what was my truth then? And now, as I'm seeing myself evolve, where do I actually see the truth now? And then having those conversations to say, hey, I had this experience in this session and it brought up X, Y, and Z. And then before you know it, you're in a 2-hour phone conversation with your mom or your sister, just deep diving into healing work. So I would say the benefits are energetically, you're moving the emotion. So a lot of my clients lose weight. they'll lean out because they're in their safe body. We hold weight in our body, especially as women, our upper half, when we feel we have to guard or protect or be in our masculine to survive. It's a safety mechanism. So a lot of my female clients, I'll see with their physical bodies, they start to get softer in their frame. They start to feel softer in their energy body, and they start to feel more connected into like dancing, singing, humming, just being more flowy. Another thing too is allowing themselves to feel more in their sensuality and sexuality, because there's so much shame around sex equals pleasure equals connection, but really it's a sense of intimacy and sensuality, like sexual expression of your feminine. What does she look like? What does she feel like? How does she want to be expressed? And that can come through changing their clothes, jewelry, getting tattoos, like whatever expression feels feminine or soft for them. A lot of my
It's funny that I got my tattoo done after you said
oh yeah, yeah, maybe that. And again, the sacral chakra is your creativity. It's opening up that creative center and expressing self. And then with men, a lot of things I notice with male clients is same thing. My male clients will come in, they've got more of the rolled shoulders, they've got a tight back and really tense frame. And the more I start to get them to come into flow state and breath, and through manipulating with the body as we're running energy and connecting, they're opening up the heart space. You can feel a sense of like they feel more confident in like the shoulders back and the heart space open, and allowing themselves to start to move energy to emotion with laughing, screaming, crying, making it safe for them to go back to their inner child parts, have those connections, and then be able to start talking about it with partners or with loved ones or with kids. And two, like they have a whole different experience of felt intimacy when we're just connecting and through breath and heart opening. And then their way of being intimate or sexual with partners, like it starts to change their whole way of how they're approaching or looking at their partner. And I noticed too, with all my clients over time, they get brighter. I mean, we know this with spiritual work. They come in, and each time I see them, it's like this new version of them, and they're talking about these breakthroughs they have and these parts they're discovering and these healings they're having. And it's just a whole energetic shift where they don't look, like so stressed out and depressed or anxious. It's like bright and glowing and young. That life force energy, right? That's like natural anti-aging.
You had mentioned physical intimacy, but it's like, I think a common misconception of that even is that like physical intimacy has to be sexual intimacy. And something that I felt really safe and okay to be in a vulnerable state was being able to like connect and like just hug. And like, you know, as I was like revisiting all of this childhood trauma and stuff, you know, it started to become pretty difficult for me to keep it together. And being that, you know, early in my childhood, being sexually molested and stuff was kind of like my brain was like, hey, if you're not being physically touched, you know, this isn't real love. You know, like we have to have that physical aspect of it for this person, for me to feel like this person actually like loves me. You know. And I think that was just like just the trauma that my brain endured. And being able to like have a physical connection with somebody that didn't have to be an intimate physical connection in like a sexual sense really helped me heal some part of me, where I was like, this feels nice to like be touched and held by somebody that's not like, you know, wanting something more from me. So that was really helpful for me too.
Yeah, that true sense of intimacy. And it's funny how many clients are like, well, how do we create intimacy? Like they think intimacy is just sex and in the bedroom. And so that's a lot of the coupled sessions where we're just sitting here like, this is intimacy. This is what, and it's true. It's just that heart open, vulnerably sharing like, hey, these are all the parts of me, and this is what I'm feeling and wanting. And being able, I love that you shared like feeling safe enough to just be held, and I don't need anything from you. And that's a big practice in Tantra, is learning how to understand your energy and be we call it like boundaried in your energy, to understand this is about me running the energy up and down, and the world teaches us everything is outside of us. Abandon self, do for others, quick, fast transactions, sex, porn, it's all focused outward. And so the beauty of coming inward is like, I'm a whole being staying in my body, you're a whole being staying in your body, and having that safety is what really opens for true intimacy of feeling just supported and not needed to be taken from.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. You said it perfectly.
Intimacy is so much deeper than the physical, and that is a huge misconception that it's only a physical thing. Out there.
Yeah, especially when I read somewhere recently that the statistics of people going through childhood sexual abuse is like 1 in 5 or something. So it's a lot of us. A lot of us that probably feel very similar, like, I have to be physically touched to be intimate with somebody.
Well, and if you go back to thinking as a child, you were being touched and thought it was love, and then all of a sudden it gets ripped out of you. That's the abandonment rejection wound. And then when you go to connect with someone again, because you've had that abandonment rejection, you put up walls, you put up armor. So then you're just like, oh, this is normal. This is now how it is transactional or connected, and not understanding why and where and how did I even get these walls. Most people aren't even aware they're armored or walled. They're like, they think they're the open partner. They think they're the loving partner. And I'm like, yes, you are. And also when it comes to talking about emotional intimacy, emotional vulnerability, or emotional intelligence of actually sharing what you're feeling and being open about what's coming up, like it's not there. And then the minute you get into session and then they're like, oh, I see, I'm noticing myself, right? And it's just coming back to safety and love of like, okay, safe to explore this part. Let's just move through it and open it and heal it instead of closing back down and shutting it off.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on our 2-part episode on somatic healing and tantric embodiment with Hilary Stark from Stark Naked. Make sure you join us next week for the second part. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you there.